I'm here to talk about a concept that we've been working on, basically the idea that decentralization is the new encryption. What we mean by that is that we're not saying that decentralization is a new form of encryption. We think that the fight for encryption, end-to-end encryption, which we believe is very important, is going to be also then extended to the fight for decentralization. So just talking about the idea of what is encryption in the first place. So encryption allows you to scramble data, making it undecipherable. Information is private in transit, and there's no ability for a third party to decrypt that information. This is really the idea of not just encryption, but end-to-end encryption. Encryption has been a real key to privacy, and there's many popular encrypted services you're probably familiar with, things like WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and many other messaging platforms. Unfortunately, governments now are cracking down on encryption globally. We see efforts from the European Union, from the USA, and of course, Russia, and then especially China, which just recently banned Signal. This idea, and many years ago when we started Orchid, the idea that privacy would be something that would be of general interest to everybody, seems quite strange to a lot of people we talk to. But now, over the years, people have realized that this idea of privacy, and in particular encryption as a basis of privacy, is very important. And there's a real global fight now to try and defend encryption by many people. Advocates of this thing is widespread. The need for privacy and the actual basis for privacy as what we believe is a fundamental human right is actually established in a number of aspects of constitutions around the world. And I guess the next question is like, well, okay, we've got encryption. Well, now what? Well, a good example of this is what happened recently with Signal. So China, even though Signal is end-to-end encrypted, China was able to stop Signal being used. They were able to stop it being downloaded in the App Store on Apple and Google. Although there are some workarounds with Androids, Apple is much harder. But also they were able to block the servers that were transmitting the packets from one Signal device to the other through the servers. So this idea that if you're not decentralized, you can also be shut down is one of the bases for what we think about in decentralized systems. I think of decentralized systems as very much a permissionless architecture. And if you think about the past, what we've built out since 2008 or so with Bitcoin is a permissionless system to enable people to store value and move value between one another. And then since then, we've built out other systems. For example, the smart contract frameworks, in particular Ethereum, allows us to do things like permissionlessly raise money for a project, have a permissionless way to start a company and run it in things like a DAO. And today with decentralized finance, do permissionless market making and liquidity provision and all the things that are necessary to start financial architectures. We're also seeing the emergence of systems around what we call decentralized services, of which we're one example at Orchid, and another well-known example today is Filecoin, which is building decentralized storage systems. So at Orchid, what are we doing? Well, other than having very cute graphics, we have an application which you can download in the app stores. You can run it on Android platforms, Mac desktops, iPhones, Linux, and soon to be other architectures. It's a fully open source architecture. The client enables you to connect to a network of providers. We, as Orchid, the company, do not provide VPN services at all. We provide software that allows people to access VPN services provided by a network of providers who are each of them being compensated in the form of a cryptocurrency. In this case, OXT is the currency we've been using. The providers are able to advertise their services and really provide a very permissionless way of connecting to the internet in a secure way. The traffic in Orchid is, we call it shredded, essentially, so that you never know who is requesting the content and where they're going. You may know one of those two pieces of information, but you can never combine the two pieces of information if you use Orchid in a particular way. The particular way you do that is to use multiple hops. So if you have, imagine in a VPN architecture, you have a single hop, that's you to the VPN provider to the internet. In an Orchid architecture, you can build out multiple hops, Orchid to one provider, to a second provider, and finally to the internet. This system sounds great, and we like it. The challenge with this in building this in modern blockchain architectures, and even the ones that are coming forwards, like Ethereum 2 and sharding and all the kind of exciting things that are happening in that environment, is how do you do payments? So we built this system, we call it Probabilistic Nanopayments, and the design is actually based around solving a security or an attack vector problem. And the attack vector is as follows. If one of you is a provider and I'm sending you packets, I'm sending you packets that I want you to encrypt and route and return back to me with the information I'm looking for. Well, if we set up a billing arrangement whereby I would send you the money after, say, like a month of service, for example, I could just run away before the month ends on day 29 and take the value I've been given by you and give you no money. Alternatively, I could give you the money up front and you could run away. And so what you really want to do is have the granularity of the payments as small as possible. And in order to do that on a modern blockchain architecture, you just can't do that. You need like a centralized server, and that's kind of the thing we're trying to get away from. So what we do instead is, instead of sending the value of a packet, and we try and make the size of the payment as small as possible so that this problem of people running away on either side goes away. And instead of sending the value of the packet, we send the probabilistic value. So many of the packets are worth nothing, and then every so often one of them is worth a lot. And then the expected value over time gives you the same amount, same value. And we believe this architecture is a generalized architecture can be used across many decentralized services. The system is very easy to use. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to make this easy for consumers. It's not only can you fund it using cryptocurrency, using dApp browsers and all the kind of things that any of you in the sort of DeFi world and other spaces are very familiar with. You can also fund it using in-app payments on Apple for now and soon to be Google also, meaning that you can just connect and double click or scan or whatever you do for your authentication and fund it using your regular Apple payment. What's actually happening there is you're funding a kind of a smart contract full of nanopayments in this system. And we can get into the technical aspect if you want to ask me questions on that. You can get it today. Like I said, it's on iOS, Mac OS X, and Android. We've partnered with most of the global wallet providers in the world, in the crypto world. And we're listed on, I think now, every global exchange out there. So in summary, we built something which we believe is not only encrypted and private and resilient, but also decentralized, which we believe is a very important thing, and why we think that this fight for decentralization is the new fight that is going to be adding to the fight for end-to-end encryption. I think I've managed to fill my time slot rather rapidly, so hopefully you guys have some questions and we can dig into that. This is how you find us. Thank you. Okay,
well,
let's look at Q&A.
Stephen, thank you very, very much. And I understand that we had technical difficulties at the beginning, but you know what? This is the beauty of virtual events. Sometimes the conversation drops, sometimes actually the bandwidth or whatever. But you know what? I have two questions for you.
Sure, go ahead.
We would like to pick from the audience. And we have about 4 minutes left into this conversation, into this presentation. The first one is there any chance that fully decentralization will be delayed from March 31st?
I'm not sure I understand the question. We are committed to a fully decentralized architecture, and okay. like any project that starts, there's a transition to that path, and but that is absolutely. In fact, we have even bigger ideas that we're working on internally.
Okay, somebody tells me that particular question is more about Cardano, probably. But you know what?
Yeah.
Let me.
We're based on Ethereum. We're compatible with other EVM smart chains, but our base platform is Ethereum.
Okay, fantastic. Governments can still stop access to decentralized systems through legislation and making accessing these systems platforms illegal. For example, India. Is that not exactly what DeFi is aiming to curb?
I don't think that DeFi is just a kind of sort of socket to the guys in power. Although that's if you look at something like GameStop and the excitement around the trading for that, that has actually resurrected AMC and GameStop, which are probably going to be going concerns right now. So you could argue maybe the valuation is actually reasonable for those companies now. But that's certainly something that people get passionate about. I think of this as more like a permissionless way to build systems. In the case of DeFi, it's building financial systems. It's in your token. Sometimes can just be seen as a sort of very skeptical way to raise a bunch of money, and we had that happen in the ICO space too. But after the dust settles in the space, we'll find, and I think we already are finding, that these tools and this experimentation that's happening, particularly in DeFi, is going to be very valuable in the future for building all sorts of kinds of systems. An example of this is what's emerging now in decentralized derivatives. So
Right.
the ability for a farmer to be able to hedge his bets against the climate in a way that doesn't require him to go to the options boards exchange and get permission and sign documents and waste all his time. And meanwhile, his crop's gone to, it's gone, right? So what if that could be done? I think that there's always the cases of governments wanting to control these things and stop them. And of course, we also need to think about protecting people in the sense of, not people not advertising this as the get rich quick scheme. And whenever I see something that just seems too good to be true, I mean, like, it probably is too good to be true. You're probably going to get burnt, and people do. In the case of Orchid, working decentralization more on, I guess, our component of the stack is Web3. So that includes decentralized services, of which we're one. So whilst we are inspired by many of the things happening in the rest of the crypto space, we very much focus on decentralization of the core architecture. And the core architecture is a problem now. We started the internet in a very decentralized way. And then really it's because of the architecture and the concentration of data, which became the product, as to the business model. It's not like Google and Facebook decided to monetize all our data and do all of these things that we don't like now. They were forced into it by the way the architecture works. We now have a different technical architecture. So maybe we can build different things. And as far as what a government or an organization or a city decides is illegal or legal, that's up to them. I'm not in control of that.
Stephen, thank you very much indeed for your contribution, and I look forward to engaging with you more.